The Loners by Regis Sprockett. Copyright Regis Sprockett, 2017. I stood on a mountain overlooking the entire world. It used to be an island at various periods during the Ice Age, when sea levels fluctuated and carved terraces, onto which ladder builders erected thousands of pleasant suburban dwellings. What remained today was a massive, fortress-like peninsula rising 2,000 feet high, thrust into an endless ocean moat. During the geological ebb and flow, sediments from nearby mountain ridges filled in the basin below, later described by foreigners as hell, a place conveniently out of view for most of our Blythe residents. The city. Our lives had been, to a great extent, determined by harder rocks and tectonic uplift. I wasn't there for most of its history. I didn't see the Indian maidens baking in pits, ceremoniously rolled in leaves, or the young men drinking Jimson weed potions, strolling around for days in an intoxicating rite of passage. I couldn't imagine the ring of dolphins that swam as gods perpetually around the Pacific Ocean universe. I didn't oversee the sediments as they were deposited on the submarine ridge. I have no memory of the thousands of years passing as the sea level fluctuated during the Ice Age, as my mountain rose out of the waters, was carved into terraces, ascending steps rapidly, then slowly, ebbing, receding. I could not judge whether or not the land was impatient, why the mountains wanted finally to rise. I didn't plan on it becoming an island. Geologically, someone else had arranged things. The older mountains to the north filled in the space between without our consent. Our mountain was no longer an island, but a majestic peninsula. This was where I lived as a teenager. I had plenty of time to reflect on my 17.5 years, what they meant, how they would channel out into other decades. All I knew was that I existed as someone's idea, someone else's idea, yet I had no contact with this other person, maybe God, maybe a collection of gods. Anyway, we left church soon after I was baptized. God officially didn't exist. This was the new secular generation. The Spanish used to own most of our mountain. Then the Americans came and bought it off. Later, East Coast real estate developers arrived and created a unique and isolated community, a king of bedroom communities with Mediterranean flair. The cities on our mountainous region called the Hill were hedged off economically and ideologically from the big city in the basin below, which were somehow subconsciously referred to as Hades. Isolation was coveted and overlaid onto the mechanism of our social etiquette. This was a place where the glare of city lights didn't blight the star canopy, where smog didn't encroach upon the crystal vistas, clean lungs, or clean minds. Hope and prosperity were assumed. You could exist there for several decades without ever seeing a homeless person or a rusty car. It was a world inside a world, and growing up there, you could be comfortably ignorant of the rest. The television or movie theater could connect you vicariously with the other world, but your immediate environment, all you touched, saw, breathed, was already set up by the city planners or the political party in power. At 17, I began to feel like a lone mountaineer on a rocky crab, buffeted by dusty winds and dry austerity. Somehow you were up high, but no one was there with you, or the rest of the climbing party had settled on an appropriate ledge. Former friends had begun the slow process of evaporation, elementary school, junior high, the first years of high school. I, oblivious, had faded, only holding on to a few tendrils of contact. Some friends I held on to tightly, some lightly, and not seeing them much. I began the high ascent into the airy, dry blue sky, bright and eternal, which crowned our neighborhood like a silent question. The blue void, the deathless sky, looked down upon our tract home subdivision, refusing to laugh at folly and tragedy and isolation. It was a nice place, though, with large 1- and 2-story homes built in the early 60s, huge lawns, precisely manicured gardens, comfortable sidewalks, and spacious driveways. The streets used to be filled with kids playing soccer and baseball, zooming by on skateboards, scooters, and big wheels, trading candy and engaging in exciting rock and dirt clod fights. Once a week, bullies awarded a black eye behind a fence, or enemies wrestled each other violently on the perfect lawns. Fun and pain. There was a small-town sense of community. Children's birthday parties, parents' cocktail parties, sleepovers, and barbecues. Then the underworld. One young man up the street was arrested for treason while employed in a high-security area at his dad's aerospace firm and under the influence of drugs. He conceived the idea to sell reconnaissance satellites to the Russian embassy in Mexico. Around 1968, a teenage girl died of a drug overdose next door. Another teenage girl a few houses down had had an affair with her high school English teacher. Then he dumped her and she went crazy. On the next street over, a man had cheated on his wife and then tried to kill himself. My mother saw Sharon Tate one day as she was picking up her mother from a neighborhood bridge game. A few years later, the Manson clan killed her. I wasn't aware of this stuff until I got older. More and more secrets kept rising to the surface. On our island, things like that weren't ready knowledge for the children, but now it didn't matter. People got divorced or moved away, and the sense of small-town warmth turned cold and separate, and the old stories could be revealed safely. The neighborhood just evolved into a hollow shell. Hell, I didn't even know most of my neighbors anymore. Many afternoons and weekends, I sat with my books, stewing in romantic syrup of English literature and inventing realms far beyond the California paradise. I'd also spend hours trying to learn guitar. I wanted to become a guitar hero. I didn't seem like I was wasting my time. Sometimes I'd just sit in the backyard looking at the plants. At night I had a great view of the stars above our bowl-shaped garden, which reminded me of a Greek amphitheater. Los Angeles was obstructed from view, so it was just me and beyond, down the hills, the ocean. It was quiet. I sort of drifted into a rural somnolence. I pretty much had the house to myself. Mom and Dad were at work with older brothers and sisters. We're off to college. We're living with boyfriends or girlfriends. There was a lot of time to muse and create. I chased and blended into the gardens and canyons with insects, peacocks, skunks, squirrels, dogs, stray cats. I overheard generations issuing from the first Puritan stock and moving west, and eavesdropped on the agonies of materialistic competition. Adam. I first encountered Adam in my Canyon Crest High School painting class. This was an elective class for seniors and a well-known way to secure a long pre-lunch break, as the teacher rarely did a roll call and often left the room to visit teachers in adjacent rooms. Brave and bored students would go to the cafeteria, snack bar, or off campus and hang around the shopping center, coming back right before we were dismissed for fourth period. The first day of class, we all sat at tables and introduced ourselves. Adam stood out because of his English accent. "You must be from England," our teacher, a tanned and shaved head man with tie-dye shirt, asked. "Yes, sir, Sheffield, in the north of England," Adam replied courteously. Being a young Anglophile and an outsider, it hit me immediately that here could be a new friend for me. As well, the pale English boy in a sunny Southern California place might have problems fitting in. He'd need me. But still lacking social confidence, I didn't speak to him for the first few weeks of class. Besides, he was busy chatting up any approachable girl with a debonair British finesse that I admired. I wasn't exactly courageous, and his courage didn't impress me, but his indifference to how to get a girl, be she gorgeous, popular, or plain, responded to him. He was rather cold and detached, like a dentist examining a patient's sore tooth. He'd somehow strike up a conversation with the girl at the easel, or the table next to him, or at the faucet washing brushes. Sometimes he'd even shyly walk around the room and give a subtle comment on a girl's painting. "Oh, I like the red here. Beautiful. Those trees in the background look nice," he'd say. The girls would reply with rather dry appreciation of the compliment, smiling but rather reserved, not in the standard, bubbly, SoCal girl manner. He was weird, a foreigner, and his skin glowed like a ghost. He did slightly resemble English actor James Mason, and he had a nobleman's demeanor. However, a tone of condescension here and there alienated most of the girls in our class. His ashen aura didn't blend into the sun and fun superficiality of an LA suburb. It was as if he had just walked out of a late-night horror film, The Evil Master of the Haunted Mansion.